Hello everyone and welcome to today's video to continue on the X670E Taichi Carrara. Today we have something in lower range, I would say. So today ASRock B650E Steel Legend Wi-Fi motherboard, which has a quite familiar design, I would say, in the Steel Legend sense and the past models as well, but yet something a bit different. It supports AM5 chips, so we have here a possibility to place the new AMD processors with DDR5 memories, and we'll get to all the details quite shortly. Now this motherboard and this CPU, so this is AMD Ryzen 5 7600X, I used in a build, and I want to read you the specifications so you know more about it. So ASRock B650E Steel Legend Wi-Fi, we have the AMD Ryzen 5 7600X. The GPU used for this build was Sapphire Radeon RX 6650 XT Nitro Plus. RAM Kingston Fury Beast RGB 2x16 GB on 6000 MHz. Kingston Fury Renegade Gen 4x4 2 TB. Case was Genesis Irid 505 ARGB for airflow, of course. Fantex amp 1000 watts power supply, and for cooling on the 7600X I used EK AIO Elite 280 DRGB, but only with 2 fans, not push-pull combination, only 2 fans as an outtake. So it's quite cool actually to have a possibility to test this one out, as well as the X670E. This motherboard brings, compared to the Taichi Carrara, a more affordable approach on accessing the new Zen 4 platform with the B650E motherboards. So let's check out the thermals and everything that I got with the 7600X, but for the CPU there will be a dedicated video just going to run some details. So in AIDA 64 Extreme Edition, CPU went up to 51 degrees Celsius and GPU 53, but taking CPU, FPU, system memory and cache, the CPU went up to 60 while the GPU went just by 2 degrees Celsius more, so 55. I wanted to achieve more, I would say, realistic temperatures, even though these are realistic, and all my benchmarks when we're talking about thermals are tested with AIDA 64 Extreme Edition. But in Cinebench R15 82 degrees Celsius, R20 80, R23 81, but then again we have 77 in Indigo benchmark, so I would say some average in thermals is 79 degrees Celsius on 7600X with 280mm radiator. So it's quite cool to see actually that even though some benchmarks showed 95 degrees, 90 degrees and stuff like that, this is quite cool to have some more, I would say, perspective on the processor and how the motherboard works with the 7600X. The scores are really good, but we'll get to that part in the 7600X video exclusively. But just one more thing. So in R20 Cinebench, okay, it's an older version, but still I have loads of data when we're talking about R15 and R20, so I still like to use it. The 5600X scored 4,299 points, while the 7600X 6,023 points. So that's like almost 2,000 points more, to be precise, 1,700. So quite interesting, yeah. But let's get down to the motherboard and all the details we can learn about and what connections does it have, and of course the cool Steel Legend logo here, which is transparent and it gets quite nice adjustable RGB with ASRock Polychrome Sync. So let's start with I/O ports. We have HDMI and display port. We have antenna ports. We'll get to that part later on as well. BIOS flashback button, 2 USB 2.0, 4 USB 3.2 generation 1, 1 2.5G LAN. We have USB 3.2 generation 2 type A and type C, and we have microphone in, audio out, and SPDIF. Now for the Wi-Fi antennas, it has Wi-Fi 6E plus Bluetooth, so supports AMD Ryzen 7000 series processors with the AM5 socket. The chipset is B650. And power design, 16 plus 2 plus 1 phase SPS power. It supports 4 DDR5 DIMMs up to 6400 MHz in OC. Expansion slots, we have one PCI Express 5.0 x 16 and one PCI Express 3.0 x 16. Supports integrated AMD RDNA 2 graphics, some storage information, Blazing M.2 Gen 5 x 5, which is the first slot with a huge heatsink, I do have to say that. We have two Hyper M.2 which are Gen 4 x 4, which are covered with a quite longer, I would say, passive heatsink, and we have two SATA 3 connections, which is quite strange. I was hoping it would have at least 4 SATA, but then again, okay. Now for the USBs, and I'm going to mention all of them all together. So we have one USB 3.2 generation 2x2 Type-C, which is for the front. We have USB 3.2 generation 2 Type-C on the rear side, as well as the Type-A. 8 USB 3.2 generation 1, 4 on the front and 4 on the rear. And we have 6 USB 2.0, 2 rear and 4 front. Basically, at the bottom of the motherboard, you have those USB 2.0 connections to connect that front USB 2.0 headers. Now, for some features, it comes with ASRock graphic card holder, which is really appreciated, I do have to say that. Auto driver installer, Nichicon 12K caps, we have Dragon 2.5G LAN and Himic audio. Delivers smoother and neater power to the CPU with SPS Dr. Moss. Multi-layer heatsink on the Blazing M.2. As I already said, it's really thick and it really should give loads of cooling to the M.2 at the first slot. We have reinforced DIMM slots, which give better physical strength for the DDR5, but honestly I would prefer that, and as it is on the first PCI slot, to have it reinforced, which is quite logical. Then we have 8-layer server-grade low-loss PCB, which provides better signal and thermal performance for the processor. Also, what ASRock states is that you do need to take into consideration when buying RAMs that they are AMD Expo or Intel XMP capable, and overclocking can be made more satisfying and absolutely no problem when overclocking. When mentioning the 16 plus 2 plus 1 power phase, we also have 60 ampere SPS. Then we have Nichicon 12K black caps, which are 100% Japan-made high-quality conductive polymer capacitors. The flexible I/O shield, as I already said, and it's integrated. Well, what I already said in the past video. The HDMI on the I/O ports is 2.1 TMDS FRL 8G compatible, which supports HDR, HDCP 2.3 and maximum resolution up to 4K 120 Hz. DisplayPort is 1.4 with DSC compressed, which supports HDCP 2.3, and maximum resolution is also up to 4K and 120 Hz. Audio is 7.1 channel HD audio Realtek ALC897 audio codec. Then we have LAN Dragon RTL 8125BG, which supports Dragon 2.5G LAN software. It supports 0, 1 for SATA storage and 0, 1 and 10 for the M.2 storages, which requires additional M.2 NVMe expansion cards to support RAID 10. All in all, I would say that benchmarking with this motherboard, I didn't have any issues when we were talking about the 7600X, but that's not a strange thing to actually have, especially after all the motherboards that I did and test from ASRock. The performance was great, but we'll get to that part as already stated in the 7600X. But for the thermals, as I stated, it's really great since I tested it with 280mm radiator. Imagine if I use 360 or 420, it would most likely lower the temperature down even more. But all the connections, as I stated, nice to have loads of addressable RGB if you're into that thing. You have quite nice amount of PWM connections for your fans, and up to 3 M.2 slots for quite nice storage, especially with the PCI Gen 5x4 on the first M.2 slot with a huge heatsink. Talking about the heatsinks, actually, I have to mention the passive heatsinks on the VRMs are really nice, and actually they are cut through, so they kind of have more not airflow through them, but more possibility to dissipate the heat from the VRMs, which is quite great to have. All in all, quite solid. And in terms of X670E Taichi Carrara, more budget oriented. I would say a cheaper version, not cheaper version of the actual X670E, but a cheaper approach to going with the AMD Ryzen 5 7600X. Looks good, looks familiar actually from the Steel Legend and rock solid design, as they already stated in a couple of their motherboards, but all Steel Legend motherboards that I had and tested didn't have any issues, so hopefully this one won't have as well. Apart from the Taichi B550, this might be the next one that you'll be seeing quite a lot in the future builds, so you'll be seeing it, yeah, quite frequently now from this point on. ASRock B650E Steel Legend with the AMD Ryzen 5 7600X. The links are in the description below, so you could check out the prices and maybe some details that I skipped or missed. But I think all should be there. So thank you for watching today's video. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Well, basically the notification bell is more important than the like button. And hopefully I will see you in another one. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.